Cardi B recently sat down for a heartfelt conversation while preparing to roll out her new album, and the topic shifted toward her personal struggles. Over the past months, much has been said about her relationship with Offset, their separation, and the emotional weight of a potential divorce. But when Cardi herself opened up, her words painted a picture far more painful and raw than headlines could ever capture. She described divorce as one of the most difficult experiences a person could endure. In her words, the most shocking part is realizing that the person you are divorcing feels nothing like the person you once married. It forces you to ask yourself unsettling questions. Who did I really marry? Where did the love go? For Cardi, this journey has been darker than anything she imagined. She explained that while she has always tried to end past relationships respectfully, avoiding bitterness or hostility, this situation feels entirely different. The love she once knew has turned into something resembling hate, a transformation she never thought she would experience. She admitted that, ideally, separation should allow both partners to walk away with what they came in with, to co-parent, peacefully, and to at least maintain mutual respect. Yet, in her case, things have spiraled into something far colder. Cardi compared the pain to the grief of losing someone to death, an ache followed by the heavy responsibilities left behind. Except here, the weight isn't funeral arrangements, but the realities of bills, responsibilities, and the harsh reminders of a broken bond. For her, this stage of life feels like moving through shadows, a period so dark and isolating that even words struggle to capture the depth of the hurt. Cardi B's words about her struggles with divorce struck a deep chord because they echoed something many people have experienced in silence. One listener reflected on their own family history, recalling how their mother had voiced a similar sentiment during her separation from their father years ago. She had explained that the person you end up divorcing is no longer the same individual you once married. That realization, that painful shift in identity, can leave you feeling like you no longer recognize the person who once held your heart. In yarn. Her mother's case, the separation did not lead to hatred. There was no bitterness strong enough to poison their bond forever. Yet the lesson remained. Divorce often brings to the surface questions that no one ever wants to face. The thought of ending up in that position, especially with the father or mother of your children, is terrifying. To fall from love into resentment, and to describe that place as a dark space, is a reality no one would ever wish upon another. Resentment often fuels the ugliest parts of a divorce. It comes from anger, betrayal, and disappointment, emotions that drive people toward revenge. Sometimes it manifests in battles over custody, other times in disputes over money, property, or status. What should have been about healing instead becomes about hurting. And in many of these situations, the only real winners are the attorneys, who walk away with large sums while families remain fractured and emotionally drained. Yet even in such darkness, there is room for hope. Time has a way of softening pain, of reshaping broken relationships into something more manageable. The same voice that recalled their parents' divorce noted that, over the years, their mother and father found common ground and are now friends. What once seemed impossible slowly became reality. With Cardi and Offset, some believe that history may repeat itself, that despite the bitterness of today, the two may one day rebuild a friendship. Perhaps not now, perhaps not soon, but as co-parents, and as people who once deeply loved each other, reconciliation in some form remains possible. Even in the heaviest storms, the possibility of calm on the other side still lingers. Since the interview was filmed, the public has also heard Offset speak openly in his own way, admitting mistakes and acknowledging that he didn't always handle things properly. For many, those words suggest the possibility that with time, the bitterness could give way to something more constructive. As parents, Cardi and Offset will eventually have to prioritize what truly matters, the well-being and futures of their children. No matter how painful the circumstances, the needs of the next generation will always outweigh resentment. Yet beyond the headlines of her marriage, Cardi's interview revealed something much deeper about her personal struggles and the pressure she constantly carries. She confessed that she would never again allow herself to take such a long break between projects. Even while facing turbulence at home, the demands of being a global superstar, and the weight of motherhood, she still found herself expected to deliver at the highest level. For her, the pressure isn't just about music. It's about proving herself in every sphere of life. What stood out most was her honesty about empathy, or rather, the lack of it. Cardi admitted that she is often her own harshest critic, pushing herself relentlessly because she knows the world offers her little mercy. She explained that no one extends her grace. Not the industry, not the public, not even those who constantly consume her art. To them, she cannot afford to have a misstep. She is not allowed the freedom to simply create something for herself, something imperfect or personal. Every release is judged, every move dissected. Her words carried the frustration of someone who pours everything into her craft, her time, her energy, her spirit, only to feel that it is never enough. As she described it, she puts her entire body and soul into the work, the way her grandmother once told her to put your feet in it, meaning to give everything with no reservations. And yet, despite this effort, the world still waits eagerly for her to stumble. This is the paradox of success. At the top, there is no room for grace because longevity itself becomes a target. The higher one rises, the more people wait for the fall. Cardi's reflection captured this truth perfectly. Not everything can always be number one, but the world rarely remembers that. In many ways, Cardi B became both her own greatest supporter and her own fiercest competition. From the moment Bodak Yellow exploded onto the charts and her debut album Invasion of Privacy earned critical acclaim, she set a standard so high that even she has struggled to keep up with it. That kind of success becomes both a blessing and a burden, something to be celebrated, but also a weight that never loosens its grip. It has now been 7 years since her first album, and the world continues to measure her against the lightning she captured back then. For Cardi, that pressure is relentless. She's not just competing with other artists, she's competing with the version of herself that broke records and shocked the industry. And when the bar is that high, every release becomes a test, every song an expectation. Still, she has always insisted that charts don't define her. What matters to her is creating good music, music that resonates, music that comes from the heart. Even Offset, who recently released a critically praised album, knows the struggle isn't about numbers alone. Sales can rise or fall, labels can mishandle promotion, but when the music is solid, it holds its own truth. For Cardi, putting out a body of work that she's proud of is a victory in itself. But success in the modern music world isn't just about the art. It's about timing, marketing, visibility, and the ability to rise above the noise of personal drama. Too often, audiences become more absorbed in an artist's private life than in the songs they create. For Cardi, this has been a constant battle, trying to make sure that her art isn't overshadowed by the chaos of headlines. There's also the cruel irony of public opinion. Even a #1 album can feel hollow if listeners dismiss it as weak. In fact, Cardi and many other artists know the sting of releasing something that climbs the charts, yet receives brutal criticism online. Numbers can't shield an artist from the avalanche of voices on social media, voices quick to call a project whack, no matter its success. In truth, most artists would trade chart dominance for genuine connection, because nothing cuts deeper than silence when your work doesn't resonate. For Cardi, the goal isn't just to win in numbers, but to win in hearts. To prove once again that her voice still matters in a world that is always waiting for her next move. As anticipation builds for her upcoming album, those who have already had the chance to hear it describe it as a complete body of work, something carefully crafted, not just a handful of songs thrown together. One early listener explained that the project carries the essence of Cardi herself, bold, unapologetic, and deeply rooted in her Bronx upbringing. That personality, raw and unmistakable, is what has always set her apart. There may be countless artists in the industry, but there is still only one Cardi B. The album is slated for release on September 19th, and expectations are high. Fans and critics alike are waiting to see whether she can once again channel the energy, honesty, and fire that made her a household name. For Cardi, this moment is more than just about music. It's about reaffirming her presence in an industry that constantly questions her longevity. Despite the noise that often surrounds her life, Cardi has never stopped showing up, never stopped reminding the world of her influence. Even now, she remains an unmistakable figure in hip-hop culture, popping up with the same Bronx spirit that first carried her to fame. She herself has acknowledged that while many of the newer female rappers are making their way, She stands as a veteran, someone whose place has already been cemented through years of resilience, struggle, and triumph. As the release date approaches, one thing is certain. This album represents more than just another chapter in Cardi B's career. It is a statement of survival, a testament to her ability to rise above criticism, and a reminder that no matter how many challenges she faces, her voice remains uniquely her own. CardiBStory is more than music, more than headlines. It's the raw truth of a woman balancing fame, family, heartbreak, and the weight of impossible expectations. She spoke of love turned into resentment, of success that feels like a trap, and of a world that refuses her grace. Yet through it all, one thing remains unshaken: her voice, bold, unfiltered, and unmistakably her own. As the world waits for her next chapter, one thing is certain: Cardi B is not just surviving. She's rewriting what it means to rise, fall, and rise again.